So now I've got the pitch correction done. I just want to render this again. So I'm just going to change the name of this to PC so I know it's pitch corrected. And then again, with that selected, I'll just go edit, render in place. Obviously, if your DAW doesn't have a render in place function, then that's fine. Just export it or bounce it or whatever it is you got to do and bring it back onto a fresh track. Okay, so that's given me the render of that vocal, of all the pitch corrections. Now, the reason I want that is because when I start splitting it, if I try and time stretch it with the vary audio information on there, it'll actually cancel out the vary audio information. So I don't want to do it. So I need a fresh copy for the timing corrections. Now, I don't need that copy, the actual pitch corrected vocal. I don't need this anymore. So I'm just going to remove that track and then just leave the one now that has been pitch corrected. So I'm just going to widen that so I get a better view of what's going on and just zoom in and change the quantize settings here to 16th. So I've just got more of an accurate, I now can see more of the lines. So I can get a better idea of whether the timing is correct or not. And it's really just a case of listening through to it, and anything that stands out as a bit too early or a bit too late, then just getting in there and editing it. Also, at the same time as correcting the timing, I'll also listen through and really sort of finely edit the vocals. So here you can see you got that little mouth sound right at the beginning. And extra sort of breathiness in there that you don't really want. That sort of stuff is really going to come out when you start compressing it later on. So we want to get rid of these little artifacts. So I'm just going to drag that in and then use the envelope there just to make sure there's no clicks or pops. Of course, we want to keep the breaths. The breaths are quite important to a natural sounding performance. If you take out all the breaths, it can sound somewhat artificial. So I'm just going to split that there. Split that other one there. Again, bring in the envelopes, and I just want this breath here. On every word you say, I wait for the clap. There's nothing too bad there, so I don't need to edit that. So just concentrate on the timing. On every word you say, I wait. Now that actually sounds a little bit too early for me, and as you can see when we're zoomed in, it is just a fraction early, that one, and the subsequent rest of the phrase is all just fractionally early. On every word you say, until the I wait. The I wait sounds like that's back in nicely timed. So there you can see the I wait starts almost a bit late, but it has the right sort of feeling for this track. And this one starts on every word you say. So that whole phrase up to there is just a little bit too early. So I'm just going to split that. Bring in these envelopes and actually shorten this a bit. Give myself a bit of room for maneuvering, and I just want to drag that back. So most of the front of these waveforms, the attack of the waveforms is just hitting pretty much exactly on the bar lines. I wait on every word you say. I wait. That sounds better. That sounds more natural. I wait on every word you say. I wait for the clouds to clear one day. So it all sounded okay apart from this one word here. I just think it was just a bit early. For the clouds to clear. Now, it sounds like that's a little bit out as well, but it's back in time about there. So I'm just going to split that. So again, this whole phrase sort of sounds a bit out. So I'm just going to move these along so I've got a bit of room for maneuvering. Split that just before the breath. Again, might as well just get rid of that silence there. bring in the envelope. And then just fractionally, that wants to go back now. Everything's more lined up with the grid.
Say I wait for the clouds to clear. One day I will tell
better.
you what you mean to me. Day I will tell you what you mean to me. One day.
Again, it just sounds very fractionally too early, so I'm just going to get in there, split there, and just shimmy, to shorten that bit. Don't need that silence anyway, so let's drag that in.
I will tell you what you mean to me. One day I will hold you in total ecstasy. One day I will hold you in total ecstasy. I'll be waiting.
So that's sounding okay. So it's minimal sort of timing corrections there, just little bits here and there just to make sure it's super tight. Okay, so just listen through to the chorus now.
I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting.
Okay, so that's all right, but this whole bit here. So it all sounds, this phrase sounds like it's just happening a bit too quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shorten it. Basically just going to time stretch it. So this phrase and that phrase is a bit closer to the actual bar line. So I'm just going to select sizing applies time stretch again, and I'm just going to drag this envelope across. Now what I'm aiming to get here, like I say, is I want these sort of peaks here more lined up with these bar lines. So I'm just going to use the time stretch tool to sort of stretch it out by about that much. And just listen to that, see what it sounds like. I think I could even just go a little bit further, so I'm just going to undo and just drag it out a little bit further. And that sounds much better already. Okay, and that's sweet, that's pretty good. So the time stretch tool really can be your friend. Just make sure that you've got the right algorithm selected. I can't speak for other DAWs, but in Cubase in preferences, you want to make sure that the audio, the time stretch tool algorithm is on MPEG Solo Musical. If you have it on complex or fast, then the time stretching isn't going to sound so great.
I'll be waiting.
That's just fractionally early. The rest of it looks pretty good there. So I'm just going to slice that there. And just drag that across a bit just so the front of it is, again, just more lined up with the bar line.
For you, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting for you.
Okay, and of course the last bit of the audio there. And just have that envelope there.
For you.
Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's just have a little listen through, make sure that we haven't missed any bits.
I wait on every word you say.
Okay, that's cool. It's not sounding too bad. I'm quite happy with that. So once again, I don't really want to keep all that audio in its very chopped form. So again, I'm going to select it, just go edit and render in place. And then I'm just left with a nice tidy waveform, and I can get rid of that other track. So that's fine. Okay, so that's cool. I've got my pitch corrected and timing corrected vocal. It's all nice and tight. There's no little niggles in there that I'm sort of worried about or anything like that. So it should be good for compressing. So it's just one more thing that I want to show you, and that is to do with pitch correcting and timing correction of the doubled tracks, the tracks that you're going to be using for doubling the vocal later on. So I'm just going to show you on one track. So I've got my double, the left-hand side. Obviously it's not panned at the moment, but I just want to show you how I go through and match this up with the original, with my final sort of comped take. So I zoom in a little bit and expand that track as well so you can see the waveforms nicely. Now I've already gone through and pitch corrected this. It's just a sort of rough pitch correction really, just to make sure that no notes were out of key. Because with the doubled vocal, it matters less about the performance. You still want to get a good performance if you can, of course, but it does matter slightly less as they're lower in volume usually. So it's much harder to hear any discrepancies in the doubled vocal. So if I play it at the moment, how it is.
Total ecstasy, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting for you.
So it doesn't actually sound too completely bad. Obviously when it's all panned and everything and affected, it'll be a little bit better. But what I want to do is just really, really tighten this up so it's almost sung exactly the same timing as the final comped version. So what I'm going to do, literally just go in, I'm just going to chop bits that I don't want. I don't want any of that first bit. There's nothing there apart from noise. And then what I'm going to do is just start dragging this over. So I'm just looking for a more of a general feel to getting this lined up. So I'm looking at these different points. So I'm looking at, first off, of course, just looking at getting these lined up. So that's probably more sort of accurate. You're looking at the peaks as well as the start. And those are pretty good. And those, not too bad. I don't want to get into too anal about this. And the ends of that is absolutely fine. Next phrase, pretty lined up waveform wise. It's a little bit long there, the tail. So what I'll do is I'll just jump in and shorten that. So just to make sure that I'm not ruining the rest of the vocal, I'm just going to stick a cut down there where it's sort of closest to like the 0 point. And then just selecting my time, sizing applies time stretch tool. I'm just going to drag the right hand envelope in so the ends of this are just a bit more matched up.
I'll be
And that sounds fine. And here we go. That's a bit early, but that's a little bit late, or fractionally late. That's absolutely fine. I can live with that. So I'm just going to put a cut in there. Just drag that back so it's nice and matched up. Then if I just drag that over, even if it's too far, I can just select both waveforms and hit X, and it'll just stick a crossfade in there for me.
I'll be waiting.
And although this is actually lined up, the weighting is not, so we can see there it's just a little bit late. And again, that whole phrase is just a bit too drawn out. So again, I'm going to snip it there. And then using the sizing applies time stretch tool, I'm just going to drag that back in to just get those to match up a bit better, which has also brought that forward a little bit as well.
I'll be waiting.
And now you can hear it all sort of goes up at the right moment. So just zoom back in, and I'm just going to drag this all. It's not too bad. It's a little bit late, so we'll just snip it. Drag that back. And it's just a case of doing this. So for the whole doubled vocal, this is what I'll do. I'll just go through the whole thing and I'll literally make sure everything is completely lined up. I'll use the sizing applies time stretch wherever needed to keep the whole vocal phrase in rather than cutting short a word. And I'll just generally go through and tighten up all of these aspects. And perhaps even get rid of some of these silences and bits of noise and everything like that while I'm going through. As the doubled vocal usually is compressed quite heavily to sort of even out the volume of it. So, okay, that's fine. I won't show you the rest of it, or the second verse part. I will, of course, go through and do that. Though for the moment, I just wanted to show you the chorus and just generally sort of what I do. That process is usually quite quick. It depends, obviously, if as long as the vocals sung reasonably the same way, then the timing is not going to be too far off.
To see, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting for you.
Okay, so that's cool. I'm going to go through the rest of the track now, and I'm going to do that to the rest of the double tracks, the harmonies that I've got going on, and of course the second verse and the intro to the breakdown. So I'll see you in the next video where we start looking at sort of basic vocal mixing, adding compression, EQ, depth, and de-essing.